You might have come across people who become stone-hearted from all the pain they went through, but have you seen anybody who couldn't keep their pain within and became sadistic? How far do you think their pain might have taken them? Well, today we will be talking about such remorseful killers who were as young as high schoolers, starting with the first one, Sky Bush.
Ohio school shooter TJ Lane has escaped from prison. Lane was sentenced to life for killing 3 fellow students at Chardon High School in Ohio in 2012.
Pleading no contest to his 30 years of life sentence, Bush pleaded guilty for firing a gun through a school's window, which in turn injured a student. Bush told a newspaper agency that the reason behind his actions was an adrenaline rush that he was feeling and couldn't think of any other way to let it out. He added to it that the rush quickly washed off, due to which he couldn't continue the plan. The 19-year-old suspect, who didn't even attend the school, ended up injuring a 17-year-old, who was luckily saved as the injury wasn't life-threatening. But that doesn't mean it didn't leave a traumatic memory in the minds and hearts of the victims and the witnesses. The entire school went into lockdown after this distressing episode took place. Bush was charged with 30 years of probation period involving charges of discharge of firearm on school property, possession of a barrel gun along with burglary of a structure with firearm. Bush was also ordered to pay a restitution amount of $14,000 and was compensated to spend at least 25 years in jail. Furthermore, he cannot have contact with victim, cannot visit public schools, cannot possess weapon, and must undergo mental health evaluation. He could also not seek early termination from his probation at all. After his sentence was read, Bush asked for a downward departure, meaning a lighter sentence, but the judge denied his request.
We're looking at video of TJ Lane in the courtroom, and there was just a sort of disturbing shot of him where he looked kind of amused. He was smiling and grinning a little bit.
Moving on to number 2, we have Devin Erickson.
The murder trial for accused STEM school shooter Devin Erickson entered its 3rd day of testimony this morning. Erickson admits being one of the shooters in the deadly incident at STEM School Highlands Ranch 2 years ago. Body camera footage shown in court today shows Douglas County deputies moving through the school.
Devin Erickson was charged with life in prison without a chance of parole for the 2019 shooting at suburban Denver High School. His act unalived one teenager along with 8 others who were severely harmed because of the shooting. Pleading himself not guilty and showing no remorse, Erickson said he had failed to help a devastated community. The 30 years of life imprisonment included 46 other charges, including a first-degree murder of Kendrick Castillo, who was an 18-year-old senior. He is revered for being the one who tried to stop the attack on a classroom at STEM School Highlands Ranch, south of Denver. It came to be known that Erickson had partnered with a fellow student who goes by the name of Alec McKinney for the 2019 shooting incident. McKinney informed the judge that they had been planning the attack for several weeks, and he clearly targeted classmates who bullied him for being trans. Since Erickson was 18 and a legal adult, he faced mandatory life sentences. Judge Teresa Michelle Slade added 100 of years to sentence after hearing pain and cries of victims who gave their testimonies against Erickson for his insane behavior that he had demonstrated in the past. The crime scene was also explained, and it is known that McKinney and Erickson targeted a dark room with students at the end of their senior years who were watching movie. They had also planned to enter from different doors to maximize the number of injured, which clearly shows their messed up mentalities. For the profound period of trials, Erickson didn't show any emotion until his family told him that they loved him in their testimony, which led to his voice breaking. And when asked if he would like to say something, he decided not to speak anything. "I don't think so. I can say anything to you, Mr. Erickson. That would make any difference," the judge said. Erickson never gave any solid reason or explanation for his action, leaving her agape for an entire community seeking closure. McKinney, who was 16, was sentenced to life imprisonment with possible parole after 20 years in jail under a program for juvenile offenders.
The jury also heard testimony from former classmates and school staff. Prosecutors played part of the 911 call that came from the school's assistant principal.
Next up, we have Caleb Sharp at number 3. A freshman school shooter was sentenced to 40 years in prison. The judge, Michael Price, ruled that the board will evaluate Sharp's likelihood to recidivism and reoffending the incident. It was declared that Sharp couldn't request a release any time before a minimum of 35 years, and he had 30 days to appeal this sentence. Judge Price explained for almost an hour the legal reasoning and process behind the ruling of the court. Amy Strahan, who watched surveillance video of her son being killed by Sharp, had gone completely heartbroken and couldn't stop but deliver the most most painful testimony ever. Sharp's parents were left in disbelief to what he had done, but Sharp himself didn't show any emotions or reactions to the videos captured by the CCTVs. After the ruling was over, Sharp had publicly apologized for the first time to Stryon, the girls he attacked, and the entire community that was affected by his actions. The victims couldn't help but cry and plead for Sharp getting the worst sentence for his horrible actions, whereas Foley, Sharp's public defender, argued that Sharp was young and immature, which should considered, and he should be seen as a youthful offender. And with that, he wished for a shorter and lighter sentence, to which the judge didn't agree. It is surprising how a child's brain might work sometimes, and they end up taking extreme steps, not even thinking twice about the consequences. Lastly, we have TJ Lane at number 4.
Lane was serving 3 life sentences for the February 2012 murders of 3 students in Chardon High School, east of Cleveland.
An Ohio teenager wearing white t-shirt with "word killer" written over it smiled, cursed, and gestured obscenely as he received his sentence of life in prison without parole. This is the case of State of Ohio versus Thomas Hemland. Lane had killed 3 high school students and injured 3 others in his shooting spree at the Chardon High School. He was 17 at the time when he bought his uncle's .22 caliber pistol to the school. In 2012, he fired the gun 10 times inside cafeteria of the high school, which led to lives of 16-year-olds Daniel Parmator and Demetrius Hewland, and 17-year-old Russell King Jr. being taken away. Nicholas Walczak was injured in this event too, leading him to being paralyzed from the waist and having to spend the rest of his life on a wheelchair. Lane wasn't even a student at Chardon High School. He was just at bus stop waiting for a bus to Lake Academy in Willoughby, his actual school where he studied. Although his sister Sadie was a student at Cardon and was present in the cafeteria on the day of shooting and witnessed the madness of her brother. Victims' families were given opportunity to address the court on the day of sentence, as Lane smirked and unbuttoned his blue shirt, revealing a white t-shirt with the word "killer" scrawled on it in capital letters, which was a replica of the one he wore on the day of shooting. He showed no empathy or guilt to the victim's family, who were giving their testimonies and calling him repulsive, hoping he'd get slow and tortuous punishment for what he had done to their families. Usually, Lane had remained stone-faced in previous proceedings, unlike this one, where he made extremely obscene remarks towards the victims' families, showing his reclusive behavior, ignoring his defender's advice. Prosecutor James showed his deep disbelief in what he had witnessed by saying the following: Judge Fury handed Lane 3 consecutive life sentences without any possibility of parole, while he smiled, nodded, and shamelessly accepted his sentence. It is crazy what some people are capable of doing.
19-year-old TJ Lane escaped from the Allen County Correctional Center in Lima, Ohio, with 2 other inmates Thursday night. One of the inmates was recaptured, and a massive search is underway for Lane.
And these teenagers did a lot more than we can think of. We never know what led them to being so psychotic that they didn't feel anything wrong while killing other students. That brings us to the end of this video. Let us know in the comments your thoughts about this, and wait for our next upload.